This continues section 4.4, and we're talking about clearing an equation of fractions. Clearing an equation of fractions is really an application of the multiplication property. What we're doing is we're multiplying both sides of an equation by the same number, and therefore we're just applying that multiplication property of equality. What we're multiplying each side by is the least common denominator. We're not building higher terms. We're multiplying symbolically, we're canceling, and then we're multiplying out so that our resulting equation has absolutely no fractions in it. If you ever end up with an equation with fractions in it, you should start all over again because you've done something incorrectly. So our first task, anytime that we're doing this, is to actually find the least common denominator. So our first task is to look at our denominators that are in the entire equation and find the least common denominator. So our least common denominator between 2 and 4 is indeed 4. So I'm going to multiply every single term in the entire equation by 4. And that includes whole numbers. It doesn't matter what it is, everything gets multiplied because that's the distributive property happening. I'm multiplying the left side and the right side by 4, which means 4 distributes over this side and 4 distributes over here. Now I'm going to cancel 2 and 4. This is 2 and this is 1. And then I multiply out 2 times 3 times x, which is going to give me a 6x. And then there's no canceling, 4 times 2, which gives me an 8, and I'll write that as a negative 8. And then the 4's cancel here and here, and 1 times 3 times x is 3x. And then plus 1 times 4, since there's no canceling, which is 4. And now you see there's absolutely no fractions left, which is really nice. Now I'm going to proceed with our steps from previous lectures. We're going to move the variables so that they're all together. And so now I have 6 minus 3, which is 3x, plus a negative 8, and that's equal to a positive 4. And then from there I need to move the constants so they're together. So I'll add the opposite of negative 8, which is a positive 8, to both sides. And then from there I'm going to get 3x is equal to 4 plus 8, which is 12. And finally, I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal so that I can get rid of that numeric coefficient. So multiplying by the reciprocal of the numeric coefficient, which looks like division on the left because it is. Multiplying by a reciprocal is, of course, division. And so now I have x is equal to 4. And there's my answer, finally. But I didn't have to deal with fractions in the meantime to get that answer. All right, moving on to part B. In part B, we need to do the distributive property first. In order to clear an equation of fractions, distribute. You can do it without distributing, but there are a few things that happen with that process that we really want to avoid. So please distribute before you clear. 1/3 times y gives me 1/3 y, plus a negative 1/3 times 5, which is a negative 5/3, and that is equal to 1/4. Now from that point in time we need to find the least common denominator. The least common denominator is our denominators. The least common denominator, 3 times 4, which is 12. So I'm going to multiply every single term by 12. The first term by 12, the second term by 12, and the third term by 12. It looks like I might not finish this example, so if I don't, just continue on with the next in the next lecture. 3 goes into 12 4 times. 4 times 1 times y gives me 4y. And plus 3 goes into 12 4 times, and 4 times negative 5, which gives me negative 20. And that equals 4 goes into 12 3 times, 1 times 3, which equals 3. Absolutely no fractions left in there. So now I need to move the constants together. So adding the opposite of negative 20, 20 to both sides. Now I'm going to have 4y, which is equal to 20 plus 3, which is 23. And finally, multiplying by the reciprocal, 1/4 on this side, and I'll make that look like division because multiplication by a